What up? My name is LaQuanda Nashay, and you have tuned in to the Selfish Chronicles. And this is not to be confused with selfish, because we don't do selfish over here. However, I'm real heavy on the self-care, and I encourage you to get you some. What's good, y'all? This is the Selfish Chronicles podcast, and today I am going to share my testimony. I honestly just didn't know how to verbally word it, but because it's been placed in my spirit heavy, I believe that the Holy Spirit is going to help me get this out where it can be reciprocated to who's ever listening. So thanks for clicking on this video and tuning in. It's this song, right, that came out, and it's not by a Christian artist. And when you hear the song, like, I haven't listened to the whole thing. It's just this one part that keeps playing. And so you can hear how the music has been put together and it sounds real good. But it is speaking depression. It is speaking captivity. It is speaking strongholds into people's life. And it's been bothering me. There's also this movie out that people have been talking about and having all this controversy about. But I heard somebody say that, people are looking too deep into it and they're going too deep. And the first thing that came to my mind was, wow, you see the how the enemy has manipulated the world, and you can see the strongholds and how people are stuck in this stagnated place. And when you say, and when your mindset is saying this is not, it's not that deep, you're taking it too deep. Well, that's exactly what how the enemy wants you to think about it. Because if you can say, well, it's not that deep, then that is an open door for the enemy to have a playground in your mental. And there is so many people that is hurting and is just stuck, and there's so much depression, and you hear the word anxiety and all this stuff, and people are having breakdowns mentally and not understanding that this is a stronghold. This is right where the enemy wants people to be. When you say openly, I'm depressed, and you're speaking this over your life, you are allowing these strongholds to run free. And the spiritual realm is more of a reality than people seem to understand, because people only go with what they can physically see. What happened to me in this season that I'm going to get ready to share with you guys? Everything is starting to unfold and starting to make sense as why God allowed me to go down this journey, because for so long I was confused and I didn't understand. But now it's starting to make sense. Basically, towards the end of the relationship that I was having when I was seeing a narcissist, when I started to get towards the end, I felt I was broken. I wasn't me. I had been making a lot of choices that were unhealthy for me. And, all these choices that I was making was, the intentions was to please this individual, not realizing that a narcissist is never satisfied. but I didn't even know what I was up against. All I knew is I couldn't understand what was going on and why this person was just so evil. I had got fed up and enough was enough. I remember um I had separated from this person and I had went, to my sister's house for some time. I needed a break from this person. This person had mentally drained me to where it was so bad that I was doubting decisions that I was making, or I felt like I couldn't think for myself because somehow the manipulation with this person, I had got dependent on making second guessing myself and getting opinions from this individual, which this was a terrible person to get, opinions from. I was realizing that I was in a toxic situation. Once I got some time away, God was able to deal with me. And I remember I was in a tub and I just felt in my spirit like, you have to break up with this person. It is detrimental. And so I remember I got out the tub and I text him and I said, we're done, whatever, whatever. And he ended up calling me right away because narcissist wants to be the one to they want to feel in control. So you can't break up with me. I have to break up with you. And because that didn't happen, I was going through this the little cycle with him. And I just cut him off. Like I didn't argue with him. I said what I said and I hung up. I basically told him like in a short way that, this is an unhealthy situation and I'm just feeling led in my spirit to be done with you. And his response was, I'm being led to be done with you. And I'm like, okay, well then you should follow that. And I hung up and I was done. And so after that, I had just started contemplating a lot of things that were happening in the situation. And towards the end of the situation, I realized that this guy was um putting, I don't know exactly what he was putting in the weed, but he was putting something in the weed because I had, I've dealt with polyps and real bad allergies. And so I had lost my sense of smell. And so I couldn't smell like if the weed smelled funny or whatever. So I just trusted this person. And I remember one time, he put something in my drink because I was a heavy drinker at the time. And I had took a couple of sips and I was like out of there. And then when I came to, like I was like hurting all in between my legs, like um it had felt like I had like a hangover. I didn't know. I had got up, I was throwing up, I was vomiting, and I was sick for like a week. And like I was so sick to where, you know how when you don't feel good, you can kind of lay in the bed and watch TV. I couldn't even watch TV. That's how sick I was. And so I'm like, what in the world? And God began to speak to me in dreams. And I remember that I had a dream that I was laying in a bed, and it was the image because we shared a home together, and I was in that bed in that room, but it was like dark and it was a whole bunch of candles lit around the bed. And I remember seeing like images. I didn't see faces at first, but I saw images. And I was like laying in the bed, and it was almost like there was a seance being done around me. And then I seen two figures and I can see their face. And it was him and his friend. And I'm like, and it was like some unnatural acts that was going on. And I remember then it went from that to me getting pulled down this dark tunnel. And I was going down this hole and I could feel dark images pulling me down, pulling me down. And I heard a voice and it said they're trying to get you not to say Jesus. I woke up from that dream, and that dream was like heavy on me. So I began to like contemplate, and I'm like, Lord, what is going on? My mind was just it was not how it used to be. Like already when I let go of this person, I was already not me anymore. And I didn't quite understand what was going on, but it was a spiritual thing that was going on with me. I wanted to be free from this situation. I understood that this was a spiritual battle, but I was trying to fight this battle in the natural. And God was sharing things with me because I still have that open door to darkness, which is why I understand in the word where it says you can't serve two masters. And if there is something placed inside of you and God has chosen you to be a vessel to speak to the people in the mantle that he has placed over your life, if you allow the enemy entrance into you, that darkness, he is going to try to keep you and going to try to kill you so you don't reach that destiny. And so this is what was going on with me. I began to act out and do things that were totally out of my character because I was seeing things in the spirit. Like I would walk into a store, and I remember this man, he was staring at me, and I'm looking at him, and as I look up, his eyes his eyes turn completely black. And I'm like, and I noticed that when I would go out into the stores and go out and be out and about, that people were, it seemed like they were close, like getting close to me. And I'm like, why is people so close to me? So it was all kind of things that was happening. So one day, um, I went to the mall and I'm walking through, and I had like snapped on my daughter because she was doing something, and I was telling her like, but I was being kind of loud with it or whatever. And the security came in, and they're like saying stuff, and I'm telling him like, this is my child, I can talk to her, whatever, whatever. So after that, I go out and they called the police. Why they do that, I don't know. Like this was a big drastic. So all I can think of is like I knew I had a prayer language. And so I just began to speak in this prayer language. And so the police was there and they was trying to talk to me. And all I can do was I was just praying in this prayer language. And it was like I could see the fear in these policemen eyes. It wasn't a natural thing. And I remember like I was annoyed because they were asking me questions that they had already knew, like my name and stuff like that. So they're coming to ask me what my name, and like they like what day it is. So I'm being funny and I'm like, Judgment Day. And he's looking at me like, and then they're trying to shoot me with something. And I'm like, hold on, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I work in the medical field. What are you shooting me with? What I say that for? They like tackle me down and everything. And so at this point, y'all, I'm like confused, I'm scared, and I'm like, okay, Lord. And only thing that I can say is, for Christ I live, for Christ I die. And I had no idea why I was saying this, but I knew something spiritual was going on. So end up taking me to the mental complex, whatever. I go there. And so I'm sitting in a chair, and all I can do is all I can do is just pray. And I felt that the angels, the heavenly angels, were surrounding me because there was a invisible parameter set when I got in there. And I didn't go in there rowdy, I didn't go in there yelling or none of that. I just sat out. And excuse me, I didn't think it was gonna be this emotional. But I just sat down and I remember like it had to be like 8 people that surrounded me, and it was this invisible parameter. And all I could do was start speaking in my prayer language. And the guy was like, it was a man, he was like, "What's your name?" And I was like, "You know what my name is." And he's like, "What is your name?" And I'm like, "You know what my name is." Like, they're thinking I'm crazy, but is I'm at being sarcastic because it's like I know the officers gave y'all my information. So why are you asking me my name? And so they surround me, and they're mad because I'm not telling them, I'm just not saying my name. I'm just sitting in a chair calmly, and I'm just being quiet, just sitting there. And it was about 7 men. So this big lady come in looking like the principal off that off the movie Matilda. And she come and she like, yeah, so she first when she came, it was like she was being like reasonable or whatever. Like, trying to be rational, like, okay, if you just, come with me, you can get, away from all these people or whatever, and just come and talk with me. So I'm like, okay, get up, walk in the room. Y'all, when I tell you the script, she flipped the script. She came in, she said something to me, and I was like, hold on, wait a minute. I was like, first of all, you out of order, because I've worked in group homes and I've worked with certain populations of, that are unhealthy, mentally, or brain injury, and development disabilities. I used to work in that field for years and managed in that field. And I'm telling her this. So I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how you coming, what I'm saying, is out of order. Why? As I'm telling her this, like, I'm not screaming, I'm not yelling, I'm not doing anything, but I guess because I talk with my hands, people think because you talk with your hands, you're a threat. That makes no sense to me, because I'm sitting right now talking with my hands. I don't think I don't think I'm threatening to nobody. But anyway, next thing I know, said something like she something, it was a code word or whatever she said, and it was 7 men. 7 men came and they rushed me up against the wall in a corner, and I could smell. Now, remember I told y'all my sinuses had been clogged up, so I couldn't smell. But all of a sudden, I could smell. It was this nasty stench of, it was like wet mildew. It stank so bad. It was terrible. And the Lord was just like, let it happen. So I didn't fight them or nothing. Like, I just was just like, I couldn't understand why it was 7 men. Like, I could understand if I was like being threatening, I tried to grab a weapon, or you know what I'm saying, and I was trying to fight them. It wasn't none of that. I was just speaking. Like, I wasn't yelling or nothing. And they shot me up with something, because next thing I know, I had woke up in this room. And so when I got up, I'm like, okay, I wasn't chained up or nothing. I was just sitting in this room. And I got up and I realized where I was at. And then the lady at the desk was like, "Are you ready to go home?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go." One of the things that the bad things that I picked up from this narcissist that I was seeing is all this universe stuff. For a split second, I did like question like, what if Christ is not real? And it's like, ooh, what I do that for? So bad idea. So then I was kind of like reaching out to the universe and speaking all this stuff, and as I began to do that, there had been a darkness that had began to form around me, and I started to see things. I thought I was making it up, but I was seeing things in the spiritual realm, and I began to kind of like accept the music that I was listening to began to somewhat speak to me. And so now knowing that those were dark spirits that I was communicating with, and I started to listen to the dark spirits that were talking to me. And so I'm still in my mind, how my mind is messed up, because I'm still thinking that I'm, I'm with Jesus. Like I'm still thinking that like I'm for the good. Like I would never accept and be for the enemy. Like still in my mind. But I started to go down this path. And now today I'm understanding why I went down it, but during it as it was happening, I didn't know. And so things started to get really rough for me. And all of the stuff that the narcissist had did to me, it was all coming to the surface. And I was learning of things that terrible things that he had done to me. I was very angry at this person, and I knew that it was a spirit behind the person, and I was very angry with this spirit. And I'm trying to continue to fight these spirits in the flesh, which I'm looking crazy to everybody around me. But I know what I'm seeing, and people around me are not understanding what's going on, right? I end up back into the hospital for the mentally ill. I end up back there, and this go around was very, very different. It was supposed to be voluntary, right? But technically, I wasn't treated like I was voluntary. What seemed like was going to be a short stay, I think I was in there for like 2 weeks. And I was seeing some crazy stuff in there. I was seeing how the staff was treating, the patients, and it was terrible. They treat you like you're not human, like they are above you. And I began to come into my right mind. So there was false allegations made, um stuff made up about my children, and anybody who knows me know I would never. My kids are my world. I've been there for them through the struggles, through everything. If they didn't have, I made it happen. Okay. And I would never intentionally do anything to harm my children ever. I don't play about my kids. So for a false allegation to be made, and there were people close to me, it was stated that they were saying making these false claims, and they showed me the paperwork, and they were trying to get me to get on these medications and all of this stuff. um this man had told me he wanted me to fear him, and I knew that was the enemy that was speaking, and I told him I don't think so. I remember sitting up in the room where they had the TV and everybody was in there, and there was this green Bible. I grabbed it because nobody else was using it, and this is where this is where the Savior met me at. They were trying to lock me up and throw away the key because they were making up, it was so much stuff that was just being made up. They were like, "Yeah, your COVID test was positive." And I'm like, "I never took a COVID test." Now, mind you, I work in the medical field and I did COVID tests during COVID. Um for a while I was doing the drive up and putting a suit on and all that. So I knew I didn't get no COVID test because first of all, nobody did no blood work, nor did anybody do a swab in my nose or anything. And it was like, well, in your file it says you took a COVID test, and I'm like, hmm. I was getting so frustrated. But I know that now that God had me in there because there was things that I needed to see. How they're just putting people up in there. Like this man, there was this man that was in there. Now, he was in there voluntarily, and he was following around this young girl that was, she, you can tell that she was young, and you can tell that in her headspace she wasn't where she needed to be even having a conversation with this adult grown man. And so they were getting a little too buddy buddy, and it was looking suspicious. And me being a mother, my antennas is up, and I'm like, so I go and tell the people at the desk, I'm like, this man, like, you need to watch her. Y'all need to keep a close eye on this because this don't look safe. It looked like something that this can open up the door for something dangerous to happen for her. And they weren't taking me seriously. And then the next day, this man comes out the room and he has no shirt on. Like, just no, he, matter of fact, I think he had on his drawers. And he walking around, and I'm like, and I didn't see them get a group of security, nothing how they did me. And I didn't see none of this. And I'm sitting up here watching this, and I'm like, why is nobody, like, they just let him stand there and just act a fool? And I'm like, but they got me in here for what? I can't get out here for what? Hmm? Hmm? And they're saying, well, he can leave anytime. Well, why would you let this person on the street? But I, I'm supposed to be here involuntary too, but I can't leave. So then they talking about you gotta have a hearing and all this stuff. A hearing. So every time I try to figure out what's going on, is this, then is this. And one plus one is two, and it wasn't making sense. So in this frustration, in this confusion, I didn't have the proper stuff that I needed for my hair. It was so brittle. It was just breaking off because I didn't have the proper tools, so I only had what they were supplying, which wasn't much. And I remember talking to a nurse, and I was telling her, I was like, how can you be in a place that is supposed to help you and they're hurting you? Like, what? These places are not set up appropriately. They're not staffed appropriately with people who really care. Because, I remember I had got into it with a girl over, behind the desk because I was like, I think it was like a toothbrush or something I was trying to get, and they was like, you need to get it from, them at the desk. So I go up to the desk, and the girls, they was so ratchet and ghetto, and they're sitting there like they don't see me, and I'm just, patiently, just, standing there waiting, and they're really talking about nothing, and they're literally just like ignoring me. Like nobody is saying like, you need anything, or what's going on. It was just so rude, and I was just watching this behavior, and I was just like, how in the heck? Why do you like? Why are you guys working here? So I'm like, excuse me, after so long, it's like, hello, you don't, I'm a person, like, hello. And she like, yeah, like we are people. You treat people like people because you're one nervous breakdown from being on the other side of this glass. I knew that I was at a place where my back was against the wall, and I had nowhere to turn, no one to talk to. And Christ show himself. Like I grew up in a church and all of that. But it's nothing like when you have a personal encounter with Christ and he shows you who he is, and it's so graceful and it's so gentle. So as I began to read my word and I began to come to, I could see that the spirits in these people were in operation with the enemy to keep me stuck, to keep me bound, to keep me trapped, to keep me confused. Once I finally got out of there, I wasn't totally free from this place. I began to go in a place of isolation. And in this place, Jesus was there and he was covering me and he was protecting me. But he allowed me to go down this because he wanted me to see these spirits, what they look like, how they operate, the characteristics. And when I finally was coming up out of this, I knew that the only person that can help me out of this situation was Christ. They tried to medicate me. The only way they agreed if I take this medication and I go to these classes and things like that. So I agreed or whatever because I wanted to get out of there. I remember taking this medication and I took it for a couple of weeks. But I had went to the store, y'all, and I had was standing at the register, and I literally blacked out for like a second because I was finna put my card in and pay for the stuff. And I blacked out. And when I opened up my eyes, the cashier was like walking around to me. And, I came to finish the transaction and left. And I was like, from that day forward, I was like, I'm not taking these pills. I forgot what it's called, but I'm like, I'm not taking these pills. Then I start to do research, and it lithium, that's they put lithium in these medications and stuff, but when you look up, lithium is what they have in batteries. A nurse was trying to tell me that, yeah, a little bit of lithium or something is good for you or whatever she was saying. I wasn't trying to hear because I'm like, this don't make sense. And so now I'm allowing Christ to begin to heal me and to bring me up out of this. So I'm going through the classes and going through all this stuff, and I'm starting to realize like I do not belong here with these folks. And so they're thinking I'm so advanced and so like so intelligent and all this stuff, and this is the Holy Spirit, this is healing, this is Christ that's healing me. This is where men try to diagnose me and try to put a name over me and try to tell me that this is what I am. And Christ said, no, you're not. And as I began to see the psychiatrist and he was talking to me, he was like, well, have you ever been diagnosed with bipolar? And I was like, no. He was like, because they have you listed as bipolar. And he said, it doesn't quite make sense. He said, because they usually diagnose you at an early age. This is usually detected at an early age, not when you're well off into your 30s. And I'm like, so God, it just began to stuff start coming to me, and the Lord began to show me how that this was a spiritual attack. This had been spoken into my life. And I remember that when I was dating a narcissist, he would always call me bipolar. And I'm like, I am not bipolar. You have to be careful with people that are jokingly speaking things into your life, because this is what they were trying to diagnose me with. I've never been diagnosed with any of these things. But what I realized is the spirits that I was attached to had attached themselves to me. And I remember crying out in my kitchen, screaming out to Christ to be fully delivered, because I was now seeing the blinders had became off of my eyes, and I was now realizing that I had allowed a doorway into my life for the enemy to take over and have a field day in my life. And because Christ loves me so much that he left the 99 to come and get me, never did I feel deserving of this. Because I'm like, I had made so many bad choices, and I had put so many things and people before Christ. And out of all of that, he still cared enough for me to come and get me out of that hospital where man had tried to label me. They tried to medicate me. They tried to lock me up and throw away the key and say, this is who you are. And so every day I fight, and people don't understand what I experienced and what I went through. So when they think that I'm standing strong, it's not me, it's Christ. I don't fear, because I've been and I've seen things that people think that I haven't seen. And I didn't understand why God had me go down this journey. But to see me today and where he's taking me, I'm now understanding. And so when I see the world speaking these things over their life, and I see people hurting, it's a passion for me to spread hope and to spread the gospel of Christ, because he is the healer. And at the end of the day, that is what the world needs, is Jesus. It's just that simple. That one name speaks so many volumes. That one name is so powerful. And that is all the world needs. Stop claiming and speaking anxiety over your life. Stop speaking depression into your life. Stop accepting who God didn't create you to be. All of that depression, suicide, anxiety, all of that is of the darkness. And it wants to captivate you. It wants to keep you stuck. But I am here to tell you that there is a Savior, that there is a light. And so that story in the Word, when they share the man that was possessed by the devils, it's in Matthew, it's in Mark, it's in Luke, I think it's in John. They all share their perceptive, but it all was the same, just in their own words of how they put it. Their perception of the man being possessed. And so I like the version of when Luke spoke about it, chapter 8, verse 36 is where it starts. When Jesus and them came off the boat, and there was a possessed man that was in the mountains, and he lived in a tomb, and he was supposed to be chained up and shackled, but he couldn't. He was cutting himself, and he was doing all kind of stuff, and he was possessed. And soon as he seen Christ, he ran up to him, and he called out for help because he knew that he was possessed with these devils, and he wanted to be set free. And Christ told him to get out of him. And because Christ is the first and the last, the King of Kings, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the great I am, the devils had to bow down and they had to get out of the man. And Christ asked him what their name was, what his name was, and he said, Legion, for we are many, because he had been possessed with so many spirits of darkness. And they asked him to go, if they could go into the pigs, if he can send them into the pigs. And he allowed them to go into the pigs. And then the pigs ran into the water and they killed themselves. Now, listen to how deep this is. I have been off eating pork. I think it's been about 10 years now, right? So when I go into the hospital that I was at, they kept trying to serve ham. They had the option. And one night, all they had was ham, and I was hungry. And I ate the sandwich, even though I hadn't ate pork in a while. And usually, if I would eat pork, it would make me sick. So I ate the ham sandwich, and nothing happened to me. But the revelation and the comparison of the story is I didn't want to be possessed by these spirits. I didn't know that what I was getting myself into. And we perish for the lack of knowledge. So it's important, which is why I push the message of being single, saved, and celibate. I push the message of focusing on your self-ish, meaning not being selfish, but focusing on you and who you are, and getting to a place to get to know you. We don't have to accept the nonsense from the enemy. We don't have to accept the darkness. We don't have to accept the lies from man. There is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end, there is destruction. This is why I stand like this. This is why I've learned, because of what I went through, that I don't listen to man. I listen to Christ, because man couldn't get me out that situation. As a matter of fact, man is the reason why I ended up in that situation. Man is the one that was trying to keep me stuck in that situation. And Christ is the one who came. It was the light so that I can see my way out of darkness, and I allow Christ to heal me. So when I stand before you and I speak, I'm speaking because I have the confidence in Christ, because I know that Christ resides in me. Christ lives in me. And my confidence is I've always been in outnumbered situations. I was just in an outnumbered situation yesterday. And I didn't understand why I was put in this situation. I was just asked to be in this situation. But God showed up and spoke through to me in that situation. And see, sometimes most people that are called, they don't want to accept the call. They don't want to accept the responsibility. I didn't ask to have this message placed inside of me. I didn't ask. All I know is that years ago, God showed me a vision. of speaking and helping women and helping men. And I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what that entailed. I didn't know what that looked like all the way back when God gave me that vision. But today I am starting to live that vision out. And yesterday when God showed me, no, you didn't ask for the position, but I put you in the position because I have equipped you. I am equipping you, and you are qualified because I said so, not man. And so I just want to encourage you guys. For those of you who don't know Christ, you have nothing to lose by getting to know him. We go through stuff and sometimes we think it's all about us, but it's for somebody else. And the world is hurting. The world is hurting. And they're running to all this type of stuff. And it's still not giving them peace. It's still not giving them hope. It's still not giving them what they need. And Jesus Christ is your only way to freedom. And as I feel light, as I feel release, something is happening in the atmosphere. Something is happening in the spiritual realm. And you know whoever you are who's dealing with all these unhealthy mental issues and all this toxicness. There is a simple answer and a simple remedy. Jesus, the Savior of the world. He wants people to be free. Satan has no power and authority, only the power and authority that you give him. And we perish for the lack of knowledge. And say the enemy doesn't like me because I don't fear him. I don't fear the darkness. Because I know who I represent. I know who I stand for. I know who I live for. I've been through the fire. You tried to kill me. You tried to lock me away. Tried to say I was nothing. That I was a rag doll for men to use and abuse. She's nothing. But what I didn't realize is that God had something great for me. And I haven't even seen the manifestation yet. But I was led to share this, and it took me a long time to really go in depth of what I really experienced. But I know that I know because of what I experienced, because of what I went through. Jesus is a healer. And so I walk with my head held high, not in pride, but with humility and confidence in who God said that I am, because Christ labeled us. And it's time to start speaking life into you. It's not your anxiety, it's the enemy trying to keep you confused and wrapped up because he don't want to get you a place of saneness. He don't want you to get to a place of peace. He don't want you to feel true happiness. He wants you to believe that all hope is gone. But death died when Christ came and walked the earth, and he died on that cross. And he rose again. So your life is not over. We go through things for a reason, to build character, to build strength. And that's pretty much all I have to say. So you guys stay encouraged and give Christ a chance. If you done tried everything else, You have done nothing that wrong where Christ would not give you another opportunity. He is the Alpha and Omega, and He is always in control. And I hope that this encourages and bring hope to whoever listened to it. Thank you so much. I know it was pretty long and extensive, but I was just led and obedient, and you know, hopefully this is this is a breakthrough for me and for you. In Jesus' name, you guys be blessed and stay encouraged. And remember, the battle is already won, and we cannot fight this battle in the natural. We have to learn to fight it with the spirit. And that's why we have to learn our word and know our word and let that word become life in us, which is Christ. And so we use our sword, we use that to fight against the tactics of the enemy. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And yea, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I will fear no evil, for Jesus is with me. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I be afraid? And my footsteps are ordered by the Lord, because I lean not into my own understanding, but in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct my path. And you say those scriptures every day. If you don't know nothing else, that's a start. So you guys be blessed and stay encouraged. And until next time, peace.